right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story I want to talk about here, Joe Rogan. More plates, more dates. I got to say, I'm very impressed with what Derek has been able to achieve. This is his second time on Rogan, and after exposing the Liver King, he's gotten a ton of press. His channel's blowing up. That video, I think, has like 3 million views right now, but he's back on Rogan, and of course, the topic of conversation was the Liver King. This Liver King thing is really the most viral thing that I've seen happen in the fitness industry in years. Everybody's talking about it. People that have nothing to do with fitness, even though Rogan's podcast is kind of fitness adjacent because he does talk about health and longevity and, you know, diet and fitness so much. And this will probably be the last time I talk about Liver King because I'm really kind of getting burnt out on talking about him. Really, he's kind of a clown at this point. But it's really become such a big story, I almost have to talk about it. It really is kind of a newsworthy thing. But so Joe and Derek are talking about the Liver King thing at length, and one of the things that I thought was interesting here is that Joe is like totally against having the Liver King on his show. He says that prior to being exposed, the Liver King and his people reached out trying to get on Joe's podcast. Obviously, Liver King did like this huge media tour where he was on every podcast, including some of Joe's friends. And he tried to reach out through Joe's friends to get on the podcast, and Joe repeatedly told them no. And Joe says that in Vegas, the Liver King's producer came up to him at a comedy event, still trying to get on the podcast. He told him no. And Joe said now that after the Liver King has been exposed, he's been trying even harder to get on the show. And Joe's still saying no, he has no interest in talking to the Liver King because he's a liar and a fraud. He doesn't want him to come on his show and promote his bullshit, basically. Which I think is admirable. That's the thing that I've always liked about Joe is that he's very straightforward. He's very no-nonsense, and he sticks to his guns on things. He's like, if he doesn't like somebody or he doesn't like what they stand for or he clearly thinks they're a liar, he's not going to have him on the show, and I like that about him. And I think it was just an interesting and kind of funny little bit of insight that Joe gives that the Liver King is like so desperate to come on his podcast, and Joe's just like, nah. Not interested. I kind of love that about him. But also, congratulations to Derek for getting on the show again. I mean, it's a huge deal for him, and I think it's a huge deal for fitness channels for Derek to get this kind of exposure. So congrats to Derek. Now, let's get into some actual professional bodybuilding stories now. So, first I want to talk about Brandon Curry a little bit. So, a big point of conversation was the fact that Brandon's coach at around 2 weeks out, more like 2.5 weeks out, said that Brandon was weighing 120 kilos. Which is about 265 pounds, which is heavier than Nick Walker, heavier than I think Brandon's ever weighed this close to the competition, and heavier than a lot of guys in this lineup. And Brandon, not a guy that's known for size, and I think Brandon kind of confirmed in the comment section of one of his recent updates, which is a picture of him from the Olympia, by the way. And I think it was the year that he won. It was a picture of him in his hotel room taken by Charles Lothian, but he responded to a comment where someone asked if this was recent, and clearly it's not. But I thought Brandon's response was interesting. He says, that's when I was little. He says, no, this isn't recent. That's when I was little. So I think that is confirmation right there that in addition to this weight of 265 pounds, 120 kilos at 2 weeks out, Brandon is trying to come in bigger. He is playing the size game this year because that picture wasn't that long ago. I believe it was 2019. And we've seen these updates of Brandon. The one that I thought he looked the biggest was this update with Patrick Johnson, who is another IFBB pro, and Patrick confirms that it was taken at 2 weeks out. And he looks a lot bigger than Patrick, and Patrick is no small guy. So now I'm convinced we're going to see this different version of Brandon Curry this year, this bigger size game version of Brandon. And it makes me very curious, I guess, the fact that Brandon hasn't posted much at all from this Olympia prep. Maybe he wants to keep it under wraps, this new physique that he's got, this new version of Brandon, where we already know, the thing, like I said, I've described the top three at the Olympia in the past like this. You've got the biggest guy in the lineup, which is Big Ramy. You've got the most conditioned guy in the lineup, which is Hadi Chupin. And you've got the most aesthetic guy in the lineup, which is Brandon Curry. Now, each of these guys are very hard to beat because nobody's more conditioned than Hadi, nobody's more aesthetic than Brandon, and nobody's bigger than Big Ramy. So they stay in that top three consistently. So where Brandon might make a really strong case for himself is if he remains the most aesthetic bodybuilder in that lineup and comes in a lot bigger without sacrificing conditioning. I really think Brandon is a guy that's usually closer to 240 than 265 at this point in his prep. So by the time it's all said and done and he's depleted, we might be talking about a legitimate 15, 20 pounds heavier Brandon Curry on the Olympia stage. But my question still remains, do we think he's going to sacrifice any size or any conditioning with that size? because I already think he sacrificed some conditioning at the Arnold Classic last year. But so far, I'm kind of intrigued and impressed by this, Brandon Curry revelation that he is bigger than ever. What do you guys think? Do you think Brandon has a shot at winning the Olympia this year? Do you think he's going to slip out of the top 3? I know some people said he's not even going to be top 5. I'm certainly not one of those people. I don't subscribe to that idea. I think he'll still be top 3, but I have a feeling the placings might change around a little bit from last year. Now, let's talk about some more bodybuilders competing in the Olympia, starting with Blessing Awodabu. We got a 2 weeks out physique update from Blessing, where again, I think he looks relatively impressive, but this is how competitive the Olympia lineup is this year. Blessing is a guy that won 2 shows to get to the Olympia, 2 pretty big shows, the New York Pro, the Indy Pro. And he looked really good at both those shows, probably the best version of Blessing that we'd ever seen up until that point. But I don't even think Blessing's going to crack the top 10 in this lineup, and I think he's got a fantastic physique. I'm a fan of Blessing. He's proven himself by winning these shows. But I don't even think he's going to be in the conversation for the top 10. That's how deep this lineup is here. And we just talked about Hassan Mustafa, another guy that won multiple shows to get to the Olympia. I don't think he's going to be in the conversation for the top 10. So you've got guys that are winning the most shows to get to the Olympia that aren't even going to be a factor, I don't think, in the top 10. To be honest, in this lineup, I would be shocked if Blessing did crack the top 10. And while I think he's improved a lot, especially in terms of conditioning, I still think he's got a little bit of an imbalance between his upper and lower body. His lower body, I think, still needs some improvement, and I think you can see that still in this picture. But like I said, if you're not excited for the Olympia this year, you're out of your mind, because it's crazy competitive. 32 guys that we are pretty sure are competing, 36 total were qualified, which means there will likely be over 20 guys on that list that are outside the top 10, and almost every guy on that list is like a great bodybuilder. Here's another guy, for example, Justin Rodriguez. He's looking freaky as hell in all the updates that we've seen from him recently. Conditioning looks pretty good. He's got a good amount of size. But here's a guy, like we just talked about Blessing, who won 2 shows to get to the Olympia, and here's a guy in Justin who almost didn't qualify. He barely qualified on points, wasn't able to win a show to get there. He was 8th at the Olympia last year. He was more than top 10. He was 8th. I don't think he's got a shot at taking an 8th place spot at this year's Olympia. I think if Justin took 8th this year, and again, this sounds like I'm hating. I'm a huge fan of Justin. I love his physique, but I think he's really burnt out at this point. He's changed coaches so many times. It's almost kind of crazy. I think it would be a miracle if we saw Justin Rodriguez in 8th place in this lineup, unless everybody else just came in looking just totally off. Now, the final guy I wanted to talk about in this video was Derek Lunsford. Derek Lunsford posted a physique update here 2 weeks out. And we've talked a lot about how one of the stronger points of his physique is his back. And again, he's confirming that in this update. We can see, even though he's coming over from 212, a ridiculous amount of thickness, size, and mass, especially throughout the back and the shoulders. Derek is, I really think he's going to be a big disruptor at the Olympia this year. I think, I was watching the Cutler cast yesterday, and Jay Cutler was saying that he thinks the top 5 or the top 6 will be the same guys from last year, just possibly in a different order. And I think the biggest possible disruptor is probably Derek to break up that top 6. I really think he's going to be a top 6 guy here. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. I think he's certainly going to be in the top 10. But I think people are genuinely sleeping on Derek Lunsford. I think he is a real serious threat. I don't think people are taking him as serious because he's coming over from 212. They think he's going to be small or whatever in this lineup. I think he is so underrated going into this Olympia. I really think he's got a shot at being very dangerous within that top 6. He's already got an Olympia title to his name, even though it's 212, and he's working with one of the greatest coaches of all time, Hani Rambod, who seemingly doesn't miss. Why should we believe that he can't be top 6 here? I just don't understand. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That's going to wrap it up for this video. There will probably be another one tonight, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. For more Olympia coverage, make sure you hit that like button. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.